Welcome back. This holiday season, the top item on the Senate's wish list is a supplemental aid package that funds American allies around the world and makes improvements to the U.S. immigration system. And lucky for those negotiators, all the topics being discussed in that package seem to actually be relatively popular, which isn't something we're familiar with when we're talking about Congress. Check this out. Our new NBC News poll finding that increased border security funding, humanitarian aid to Gaza, and military aid to Israel and Ukraine and Taiwan all have more than majority support among voters. Now, to be sure, Congress has plenty of hurdles in both the Senate and the House before appropriating any of these additional funds. Now, one of those hurdles is the fact that there are divisions inside both parties, with Republicans divided on aid to Ukraine and Democrats divided on how it should be spent in Israel. Joining me now on set is Susan Page, of course, the Washington bureau chief for USA Today, Republican strategist Jim Dornan, and Chuck Rocha, the co-host of the Latino Vote podcast and the founder of the Nuestro PAC. So, Susan, explain this to me. This is something that has broad support across the country, but yet it will be difficult to pass in Congress. Is that an example of why Congress is in a bit of a bizarro world right now, that they can't get something popular over the finish line?
If only this were news to us, you know, that,
I know, right?
Even things that most Americans support can't get through Congress. I mean, the Senate may be enthusiastic about this, or parts of the Senate. The House is like going to be a whole nother kettle of fish, and Mike Johnson, the new speaker, is going to have a difficult time getting a unified package through the House. I think that's really unlikely. And when you break it up, you lose some of the momentum where one part keeps the other part, helps the other part get over the finish line. Yeah. I think it's going to be really tough.
Yeah, it is like a tension rod. It's got to be you pull it apart and it falls apart. And Jim, I'm really interested in the border security piece of all of this, and I think the border security piece is kind of the linchpin in terms of bringing this all together. And the reason being that it's a lot more popular across the board than it was in 2016 when Donald Trump was talking about building a wall. You see both Republicans and Democrats united in this idea that something needs to be done at the southern border. Is the electorate more Trumpier, or is it a reflection of the reality on the ground?
I think there's much more attention being paid to it, mainly because of the Republicans who are yelling and screaming about it. But, I mean, with 150 potential terrorist list suspects in the country, I mean, it's got people thinking about it. So whereas a year ago probably wouldn't have registered more than 10 or 15%, I'm thinking it's one of the main issues that's going to hurt Biden.
Yeah, well, Chuck, does it hurt President Biden if he does push through some sort of a border security package that includes policy changes, maybe changes to asylum, maybe the reinstitution of the Remain in Mexico program? Do Latino voters penalize him for that if something like that gets through?
It's different state to state. We've all talked about Latinos not being a monolith. They look very differently in Cuba than it does on the Texas border, which is much different than the voters in Arizona and Nevada. There's one thing for sure, though. The winner will go through the Latino vote because of our population in Arizona and Nevada and some key congressional races. One of the points of contention that we don't talk about is in 15 marginal congressional districts, there's more than 28% Latino population, and in 8 of those, Latinos make up over 45% of that electorate. They will determine who controls Congress because Latinos have grown out of the major urban areas where we used to always be in San Antonio and L.A. and New York. And now we're in Nebraska. Now we're in the outskirts of Tucson. So I think that going and talking to this community, all depending on where you are, could have a big issue.
And how do you talk about this issue, Chuck? I mean, is it mass deportation? Is it saying that you're going to send the military down to the border?
No matter who the immigrant is and how long they've been here, everybody's going to be for quote unquote border security. The way you talk about handling refugees, people that are seeking asylum, women and children trying to escape horrible situations is, I think, the real how you get it done.
Yeah. Okay. So, Susan, of course, Donald Trump has been leaning into this issue of border security. He's the one talking about mass deportations, talking about bringing the military down to deal with these cartels. How does that impact the 2024 race in terms of the other Republican candidates as well?
Yeah, Trump's appeal to Hispanic voters has been really remarkable, and it's kind of paralleled the inroads he's made among black voters. This is a voter group that used to be pretty safely Democratic, and I think that is no longer really the case. One of the issues is the border. There, as you say, Latinos are divided on how to handle this issue. So are Democrats. So Joe Biden has Democratic mayors in big cities like New York saying you have to do something about the influx of undocumented people. But then he's got liberals, Latinos, others in his coalition who are opposed to things that seem draconian to try to address that.
And it seems with each passing day, Jim, that Donald Trump becomes stronger within the Republican Party, that this primary that's being run seems to be a primary for second place. Now we're seeing even some kind of tried and true never-Trumpers changing their tunes yet again, the latest being Peter Meijer, a former Republican member of Congress, a moderate member of Congress who was voted out in the last election cycle. He's now running for the Senate in Michigan. Could be a strong general election candidate if he can get through the primary. And he told Peter Meijer told Politico that his overarching goal is to make Joe Biden a one-term president. I think that the economic damage that he has wrought and will continue to bring will have a far more wide-reaching negative consequences on the country than a second non-consecutive term for Donald Trump, which is pretty shocking given how critical he was of him before. I mean, is this a sign?
I think he called him unqualified.
Yeah, exactly.
President.
I mean, what do you make of this?
I think he must have done poll numbers and realized that he's got to have the Trump base if he's going to win that primary. Because Mike Rogers is not going to be an easy candidate to beat.
Right.
But I mean, in Michigan, Trump does have a strong base there, and I understand completely why he did it. I'm sorry that we're walking backwards on some of the stuff that Trump is doing instead of moving forward. But I think it's just the nature of the base right now.
Yeah. Well, so Chuck, if you get through a Republican primary in a state like Michigan, can you win the general election if you're running alongside Donald Trump?
Michigan's one of those last pure, true swing states. And back to what Susan just said, black voters in Detroit, if they don't show up and don't show up at the numbers that they're supposed to, it's hard for any Democrat. Then you have these emerging groups, some of which are Muslim groups, some of which are Latino groups. Like, do they stay home when you look back at what Biden and the Middle East and all the things that are going on, all of these little small margins now for political guys like me that are doing focus groups every single day, these margins matter now.
Yeah. So, Susan, President Biden's approval rating, of course, a big drag on the Democratic Party right now. It's hovering around 40%, the lowest it's been in the NBC News poll. And the voters who somewhat disapprove of him, they're going to be very pivotal in this next election cycle. They make up about 9% of the electorate. They narrowly break for Trump in this poll. He really trailed with voters like this, these swing voters in the last election cycle. How does President Biden bring those voters back onto his side of the ledger?
I think he does it by delivering as president. I think the White House would argue the economy is looking better, inflation is moderating to some degree. He needs people to feel that in their lives, so they give him higher ratings on the economy. He needs things like this hostage deal in Israel, which we're all pulling for humanitarian reasons. But if that happens, it reflects well on his leadership and diplomacy in that region. So I think there's no way to talk your way into the White House if you're the incumbent president. You have to perform your way into the White House, deliver.
It's interesting, Chuck. Obviously, Democrats are nervous about this poll, but I was reminded this time in the last election cycle, we'd never even heard of the coronavirus. How much could things change between now and Election Day next year?
I would remind you, I've worked on a presidential primary where my candidate had a heart attack. I've seen a lot of things change overnight.
I was there, Chuck. I was there.
And that's why I bring it up, because things change every day in the work that I do.
Yeah.
Every day is a catastrophe. I live in chaos every single day. And with the emergence of social media and all of these cell phones, folks are getting instantaneous information and they're hungry for it all the time. So they're there, they're excited, boom, and then they move on.
Is enthusiasm the key, though, Jim? Does he have to reignite that with the Democratic base?
I think the two biggest motivators for Democrats to go to the polls are Trump and abortion. And I think on the Republican side, it's going to be Biden, and it'll be, take a pick. Economy, the border, whatever it happens to be. But, I mean, I think that eventually you'll get your voters who you want.
It's interesting. Jim said the two biggest drivers of enthusiasm for the Republicans and Democrats are the other guys running, right? Is that
absolutely?
That tells us where we are in this state of American politics right now. Thank you guys all for being here. Have a very happy Thanksgiving. If I don't see you,
Ryan.
we appreciate you being here.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.